So welcome guys to another Resto Designs video and to the channel. And today we'll be covering another how-to video, and it's all about the timing belt. This is a pretty straightforward actually job to do. Today's video is going to be covering the 16 valve. So this is pretty much the same apart from the tensioner. KR, PL, 9A, ABF and ACE, which is off the Audi 80 I think it is, which is basically an ABF but north-south. So this covers basically, the timing marks are all the same, 2 litre to 1.8 early engine, so it covers basically from so it covers from 86 all the way to 2000 more or less. I think the Seat went all the way up to about 99, 2000 on the ABFs. So yep, so it covers quite a large period of time. Okay, so the first thing of note really with the timing belt is make sure you got the right timing belt for your car. Even though they're all the same thickness between the 1.8 and the 2 litre, there is a difference due to the block, mainly just the ABF, because I think the 9A timing belt is the same as the KRs, because they're short block, otherwise known as the bubble block. But the taller blocks, the ABF, I think the block is 15 mil taller, so basically the belt needs to be longer. So that's the first thing of call. Make sure you got the right one for the car, which I think this looks like it could be the right one. It says ABF on the box. So let's start, and I'll show you by the timing marks. And the first thing to do is actually time the engine up to TDC. Okay, so we've got the benefit that this engine's kind of been stripped down because we've put all these aqua blasted bits on this car. So hopefully, let me get a light so you can see what's what. Okay, let me get that up there. Okay, so the first thing you'll notice is there's this little notch on the timing belt cover. So that needs to line up with a notch that is actually on here, which I think it's actually, so we've gone past it here, TDC. So kind of, it's not really advisable to go backwards. You can, but I wouldn't advise it. Always turn it clockwise. So we're going to turn it, and never turn it from the top pulley here. Always turn it from the lower crank pulley at the bottom. So on these Golfs, the crank pulleys are all the same. Use that center one, which is a 12.19 mil, which is in there. I don't know if you're going to see it because of the light. So it's in there. So before you remove anything else, let's get this thing on TDC at the top, and then I'll show you where the mark is on the lower crank pulley. Like I showed you guys before, the mark is there, and there's like a little notch in there. What I'll do is and then down at the bottom on the crank pulley, you can just about see that mark down there. You can't see it now on the camera, but there is actually a little arrow on the plastic cover, which you can see in real life, but obviously in this camera you can't, but I'll show it to you when I take it off. So that lines up there, and that's TDC. So the next thing you need to do is, obviously this car's stripped down a bit more, so I've got the luxury of just taking this bracket off, but with the alternator and stuff, you don't want to go with the actual work of taking that all off. So you can literally just loosen this pulley off, which then allows you to take this timing belt cover off. This is obviously on the ABF. On the KRs, you don't have this tensioner. All you have to do literally is slacken off the alternator, and then you're able to take the belt off, and it doesn't obstruct this. But what does obstruct this also is the water pump pulley. Doesn't matter if it's ABF or KR, you need to remove this with the free 6mm Allen keys. Okay, so now I'm just going to remove that bottom pulley with the 4 6mm Allen keys and remove this bracket off. So the crank pulley comes off quite easily. It's just these 4 bolts, like I've said, and there is a stud pattern to it, as in unique. It only fits on one way, so it'd be impossible to actually get the marking wrong. And also, this is like a little indicator because there's actually a little dimple on the lower pulley where this actually locates in. And as you can see, this was the mark I was referring to. That lines up with the timing belt cover. So now that we've got that off, and both the alternator belt off and the power steering belt off, the next port of call, as you can see, this water pump pulley here is interfering with this. So there's normally a little hole in this pulley, and the hole isn't there for fun. It's actually so that you can actually locate a screwdriver or like a little bar into it, so actually you can lock this pulley, which then allows you to take off the bolts. Pulley off, not so hard. So now you've got this, there's 110mm here, there's a 5mm Allen key in here, and then at the bottom you have a 5mm Allen key here, and that's it, just those two. So I've removed that 10 like I said, and the two 5mm at the bottom, and the cover just comes away. And as you can see, once I've cleaned this cover, you'll get a clearer picture of, I'll give it a little wipe down, but you can see the arrow just there. Let me just give that a clean and you can see 100%. Okay, so there's a little arrow that obviously lines up that I was talking about that you can't see in the camera, but there it is, that's the arrow. So we've got that off, it's the easy part. So now it really is now just a case of loosening the 13 and releasing the tension on the belt. So this is a 13 on the ABF, but on the KRs and the PLs, it's actually a 17, I think, or a 15 maybe actually, because the stud's also bigger as well. This is actually an M8 stud, and on the KRs and stuff, it's an M10 stud that comes out of the head. Just slide it off. So under tension, you can still quite easily just get it off. So we've got the belt off, the old one. This is the old one. As you can see, it isn't actually that old, or it doesn't look that old actually, because it's only done about 2,000 miles. But the situation is with this, it's 5 years or 60,000 miles. I don't mess around, especially with the ABF, with the timing belt schedule. I mean, personally, from experience, I bought a brand new Seat, and about 3.5 years, I covered 61,000 miles, and it literally snapped on me on the motorway. So don't mess around, especially if you've got an ABF with the timing belt schedule, because they really are quite sensitive. The KRs, from experience, you can get away with it actually a little bit more. I don't know why that is, maybe because the belt is, maybe to do with the block being taller or something, and the belt being longer. But as far as ABFs are concerned, don't play games, change them. Now this pulley down here isn't of no concern. This is the oil pump one. If you had an 8 valve, yes, 100% you need to mark this up, because it goes along there and it drives the distributor. So you need to mark this up if you're doing an 8 valve. On these 16 valves, it's not important, it just literally just drives the oil pump. One thing you do need to do though, actually, if you do have a KR or a PL, is that obviously the distributor on the 16 valve is run off the inlet, off the exhaust cam, sorry. And what happens is obviously, as you've changed the tension because you put a new belt on, the timing will actually go out slightly. So it's worth doing once you've actually set the car up, you know, once you've finished the timing belt, sorry, and you've got it all timed up and you're happy with it, and you've got the car running, once the car's reached operating temperature, just to double check with a timing light your timing marks, and it needs to be 6 degrees before TDC. So just double check that it's on there. There's a few ways of doing this. Now, the right way of doing it is always that this belt, this side of the belt, is this one that needs to be tensioned all the time, under tension, and then this is where you kind of got the slack on it. One that lets you put it on, and also when you got to time it up, you know, when you got to tension it, sorry, you're taking the slack from the back of the belt and you're not actually moving the pulleys. As you can see, this is really, really slack. And the way I tend to do it is now, with everything off, loose like this, slack, I'll actually put the bottom timing cover back on, the crank pulley back on, and make sure that it hasn't moved the crank. And then once I know it's all kind of lined up at the bottom, because here, this is a lot harder to move this top pulley on the cam. Now just remove the belt, get it spot on, and then you'll see I get this nice and tense, so that then all the slack is at the back, then you take up the slack, obviously, with the tensioner. Okay, so it has moved slightly, so I'm just gonna put it back a little bit and then time up. Then, like I said, put the tension on this front side of the belt. Okay, so that's back where it should be, and you just pull it up as much as you can, get it on the teeth, all locked in. Just work it in like that, and then as you can see, it's tense. Now, if I was to push that down, it would move the timing back out again, so you don't touch that. Once that is taut, and you can see all the free play now is on the back. So this is at the perfect time now. This is when you actually tension it up. These ABFs, you don't have to worry about the tension on the belt, because it's actually got a tension a lot of people don't seem to realise. So this little mark here, as I move it round, it will come into line with the plastic cover in the back, and that's the perfect tension for it. And then I'm using a pick here, I'm not using the right tool for the job, but it still does the job, and then that's it. And there you go, perfect. So that's the timing. So as a matter of course, I always turn the engine over twice to make sure that everything's fine and double check the tension. Okay, so just double check that, sorry for the background noise. So that's timed up, the bottom crank pulley is timed up, and the tension is where it should be. And we've got nice tension there and slack there, enough to move side by side. Job done. Now I just need to put the cover on and it's perfect. So if there is any questions, leave it in the comments. I will reply and try to reply to all the comments that are on there if anybody has any queries. Thanks for watching, keep safe, and watch the channel for loads of more Mark II and Mark III content, as well as how-tos. Cheers.